evening, everyone, and welcome to Monday Night Travel with Rick Steves Europe. I'm Lisa Friend, and as always, I'm delighted to be your host this evening as we traipse along to the French Riviera. We're lucky to have our own Francophile extraordinaire here with us this evening, Monsieur Steve Smith. Steve, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Lisa. It's good to be here. It's been too long. Well, it's not been all that long. It's good to be on the same time zone in any case. That feels very good.
It's much easier when we don't wake you up in the middle of the night, right?
Oh, baby. Yes, you're right. Yeah. I almost could reach out and touch you. I'm so close. I'm on Bainbridge Island and enjoying a cold winter's day.
Yeah, we have done this in the studio before, but because there were 5 to 7 snowflakes in Seattle, no, it's too dangerous. We're not good at that kind of stuff.
Yeah, right.
Before we begin, I just want to say, in the world of television production, we strive to be evergreen and timeless. In the world of guidebook production, we strive to be as up to the minute as possible. So Rick is going to show us the Riviera, and Steve, who authors the guidebook on this region, is going to give us the 2025 updates. And at the end, we're going to head up into the inland Riviera with some pictures after the show. So Steve, I'm going to say au revoir to everyone, and I'm going to start the video for you, my friend. Not easily, but I will do it.
The quintessential image of luxuriating on a beach in Europe is here on the Côte d'Azur, or the French Riviera. And after soaking up more than our share of sun, we'll see how this glittering stretch of France's Mediterranean coast offers more than just a first-class beach break. But don't get me wrong, we will enjoy the beach, from high-end resorts to hidden jewels of the Côte d'Azur. We'll wander the gardens of a 19th century villa, zip up the Corniche to see a trophy of the conquering Romans, reflect on the light and color of modern masters, go posh with the glamour set, relax in Antibes, and then feast on bouillabaisse. When Europe heads for the beach, it often ends up on the south coast of France, the Côte d'Azur. We'll start in Nice, check out Villefranche and Cap Ferrat, race over to Monaco, visit Cannes, and finish in Antibes. In the 19th century, aristocrats from London to Moscow flocked to France's sunny Côte d'Azur, or Blue Coast. Much loved for its blue seas and blue skies, this was the place for Northern Europeans to socialize, gamble, and escape their dreary weather. Whether you're rich or not, Nice, with its eternally entertaining seafront promenade and fine museums, is the enjoyable big city highlight of the Riviera. In its traffic-free old city, Italian and French flavors mix to create a spicy Mediterranean dressing. Nice may be nice, but it's hot and jammed in July and August. We're here in early June, beating the serious heat and crowds.
Yeah. So what do I want to say? I want to say avoid July and August if you can. Off season in this part of the world in Nice is the time to go if you can. You want to avoid a couple key tips for you that we won't cover, that Rick doesn't cover in the video. May is a tough month, even though the weather's ideal, because there's a couple major festivals, such as the Cannes Film Festival and the Grand Prix in Monaco. So be careful, because prices go crazy. If you avoid the 5 days of each or whatever they are, they're not much longer than that, you'll be fine in May. April's lovely. I'd go right now. It's probably in the 60s in Nice right now. And those images we just saw remind me, whenever I'm updating, I'm going to be there well, just when I said late April, early May myself this year, for the update of the book this year. There's very few people on those beaches. Those images, I don't think I've been there in July and August in a long time. In any case, love Nice. This is a city, by the way, that I used to go to because I had to, and now I go because I love it. It has evolved in such good ways since the TV show was done. Beautiful improvements in public transit, tramways to get you easily in from the airport, a vast expansion of pedestrian walkways, and more great restaurants than ever, too. Continue on, Lise.
It's a good biking town, isn't it, Steve?
I love it. Yeah, that's another thing. We're going to be talking. You're going to be seeing images of the Promenade des Anglais as we go through this. The broad walkway along the beach, along the Baie des Anges, the bay. They have cordoned off or curbed off a section of that for bikes and rollerbladers, mostly bikes. And it's all level. You actually could ride or walk even in from the airport. It's so close, and do a beautiful seafront ride for 45 minutes or something, and never climb a hill to speak of.
Fantastic. Let's get back to the video.
Right.
The broad Promenade des Anglais, literally the walkway of the English, was paved in marble for blue-blooded 19th century English tourists who wanted a safe place to stroll and admire the view without getting their shoes dirty or smelling that fishy gravel. Today, it's a fun people scene with a bike and rollerblade path that leads all the way to the airport. The beach, while pebbly, is popular. Whether you're looking for an adrenaline rush or just working on your suntan, this beach has it all. Tan lines can be hard to find, as Europeans are relaxed about topless sunbathing. While major stretches of the beach are public, much of it is private, where you pay to rent a spot, complete with mattress, lounge chair, and umbrella. For a particularly scenic lunch, you can eat on the beach. I'm having a salad niçoise, the hearty local standard, with anchovies, tuna, hard-boiled eggs, and tasty little niçoise olives.
I love walking above. I don't really hang out on beaches, even if it's sandy that much. But these beaches, because if you want, you can rent a chair, an umbrella, and the whole thing. But it makes it kind of fun to do. But I love having breakfast. So one of the advices in the guidebook is get out early, do the Promenade des Anglais, quiet in the morning. Don't do your breakfast at your hotel. Have it on the beach. Those places are open, and the lunch they're having, as well as dinner, we recommend a few places on the water. They're not crazy expensive either.
Oh, that's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do when I'm there. All right, thanks, Lisa.
Just because Rick mentioned it, I feel like I don't see many topless women on French or Italian beaches for that
That's
matter.
a really good point. Yeah. So all you young men who go there with using your cameras as binoculars with your telephoto lenses, that's kind of a thing of the past now. Awareness of skin cancer, and a lot more foreign visitors who don't understand the same culture. Kind of being uncomfortable makes that much less prevalent than it used to be, Lise. Yeah. So
Graceful buildings from the turn of the last century lead in from the beach, reminders of the belle-époque. Literally the beautiful age, when the world seemed to revolve around the upper class, and indulgence with abandon was a lifestyle. Nice's Grand Opera House illustrates the beautiful extravagance of this era. Imagine this opulent jewel buried deep in the old town of Nice way back then. With Europe's elite wintering here, the rough-edged town needed some high-class entertainment. A prime example of belle-époque luxury is the majestic Hotel Negresco. It offers some of the city's most expensive beds and a chance to step back into that age of extreme refinement. The exquisite royal salon combines belle-époque grace with engineering by the great French architect Gustave Eiffel. The chandelier is made of 16,000 pieces of crystal. It was built in France for the Russian Tsar's Moscow palace, but because of the Bolshevik Revolution, he couldn't take delivery. Many of Nice's early visitors were Russians, and the city's Russian Orthodox Church claims to be the finest this side of the Volga. 500 rich Russian families wintered in Nice and needed a worthy Orthodox house of worship. Tsar Nicholas II gave this church to the Russian community here in 1912. A few years later, Russian comrades who didn't winter on the Riviera shot him. Here in the land of olives and anchovies, the church's proud onion domes seem out of place. But I imagine so did those Russians. The interior is filled with icons and candles. The icon wall divides the temporal world of the worshippers from the spiritual world behind it. The angel with red boots and wings is the protector of Russia's ruling Romanov family. The hammered copper cross commemorates the massacre of the Tsar and his family in 1918. The icon of the Virgin and Child is decorated with silver and semi-precious stones. A priest here told me that as the worshipper meditates, staring deep into the eyes of an icon, he enters a lake where he finds his soul.
That site is now more easy to get to than it was before. It's worth the extra walking or tram ride to find the Russian church. It is remarkable. But it also, the reason I wanted you to stop, a lot of people think of Nice as a tourist destination. We'll go hang out on the beach, right? And maybe there's some modern art here that we'll see. The history that's available in this city, people often miss. And so the age of revolution, the Russian Revolution, you know, I was just in Mexico City and I saw the house of Leon Trotsky, and it reminds me of what we're talking about here. The history of Nice is the history not only of that period, but it is the origination of tourism in a big way. The Russians came here. The Brits really started it. Queen Victoria, they were trying to get away from tuberculosis. And they would come to the French Riviera because it was civilized. We were building the Promenade des Anglais to stay away from those Italian, dirty people. And so we have this sophisticated place to walk and be safe and be in the sun in the winter that the Russians and the Brits couldn't imagine. And because of those families' involvement and royalty, the history in Nice and the Riviera is far more interesting than I think a lot of people realize before they get there.
Oh, that was so well said. Thank you.
It was inspired. I didn't even think of it before. Thanks. Carry on.
Nice was born on its easy-to-fortify hill. From there, and inland from the beach, spreads its colorful Old Town. The Old Town squares feel more Italian than French because until 1860, Nice was ruled by an Italian king. Until the mid-1800s, the people here spoke an Italian dialect. Street signs are still in 2 languages, and pasta is still a favorite. Nice's Italian rulers lived in this palace. As the modern nation of Italy was being created, this region was given a choice. Join the chaotic new country of Italy, or join wealthy France, which was enjoying good times under the rule of Napoleon III. The vast majority of the people voted to go French, and voila.
I love that. And voila. I just wanted to make sure we made note of the market that's coming up because I don't think that he talks enough about that market. Could you tell us the name, please?
Thanks. And also, I love you stopping right there, Lisa, because the Franco-Italo culture there is so vibrant. I don't know another place in Europe, maybe in the Basque Country in Spain to France, where there is this dual culture that you get in one city, in one area, but particularly in Nice. This is a place to eat Italian. I mean, ravioli was invented in Nice, I think I'm right about that. It could have been gnocchi, but either way, half the restaurants are Italian, and you can find fresh pasta that you can't find. I live in Burgundy, as you know. We don't have fresh pasta stores, but down here you do. And yes, the market that you're talking about is called the Cours, C-O-U-R-S, Soleil, which really has to do with the sunshine. They open a courtyard open to the sunshine, and it's a must. And it's one of those places when you continue the video that to shop in the daytime, it's fun to do, just to stroll and see all the flowers, and the flower part is sensational. But come back at night for a dinner, even though that's not the best cuisine, but what a fun place to have dinner at night for the ambiance.
Oh, thank you.
The Old Town offers a cultural scavenger hunt of opportunities. From its medieval market square with fresh seasonal produce, to a pasta shop showing Nice's Italian roots, to the nearby Patisserie Hour. Its belle-époque storefront brags that it's been run from father to son since 1820. Queen Victoria satisfied her sweet tooth right here. Soca, a thin chickpea crepe seasoned with pepper and olive oil, is a peasant staple predating tourism that's still dear to local hearts. At this busy stand, the soca arrives by motorbike, hot out of the oven, and it's sold and gobbled up as quickly as they can slice it.
Okay, we can't go any further, and I put myself on the screen so because we're talking about food, and that's very important to me. So I didn't want to go any further. So Socha.
Soka.
Soka. I thought it was very interesting, great fiber, felt very healthy. It's, it's not like a churro or, a deep fried funnel cake. It wasn't something from the fair that would be craveable, but I think that it's wonderful that the popularity of it still exists because it's traditional and healthy.
Yeah, and it is particular to Nice. But it's not, I mean, it's not sweet, right? There's two other bread items kind of I want to talk about. Fougasse is from this area. Again, French Italo cuisine. You should look for Fougasse breads, Fougasse, in addition to the Soka bread. And the Soka is really a really thin crepe rolled up with a little spice on it. But also pizza Ladière. So think of pizza, Ladière. I just love that. You'll see that in Provence as well. It's from that part of the world. It's like a little pizza, but what is it? With anchovies and onions, galore. Love that part. We'll talk more about cuisine, I think, main courses later. Is that right, Lisa?
We can talk about food as many times as you like.
By the way, I am drinking Rick's favorite red wine. I don't know if maybe you had planned to let me introduce this, but
Yes.
tonight, in the
You can do
spirit
that now, Steve.
in the spirit of Monday Night Travel, right? Bringing people into our living rooms. Cheers to you, by the way. I wish I was with you. Bandol, Bandol, is made very close to Nice, not far away at all. And it is Rick's favorite red wine from France. Well, he's got a few, but this one is a treat. And it's a small production. Bandol, Bandol. It's a blend. It's sort of like a Rhone wine blend. Added a few more grapes. It's almost like a Chateauneuf du Pape if you like those wines. Think of it that way. All right, enough of that.
Does Bandol also make a rosé?
They do. They do.
That's a pretty popular rosé, isn't it?
I don't know how popular, because the production is small. The little hamlet of the town of Bandol is right on the water, between Marseille and Nice, more toward Nice, really. But yeah, it's not a big production, so I'm not sure how popular it is. Yeah, but they do make a rosé, Lise.
Zen, do you have our bottle here? Oh, we're gonna do something behind the scenes, and I know that at some point you had some of this, Steve, because we have a tradition at Rick Steve's Europe of making ceremonial drinks. So this is a little split of champagne for when we very first sold 30,000 seats. And because I forgot to bring wine from home, my wonderful colleague Zen found this bottle and popped it open, and it's still drinkable.
I was there then. I was I was running the tours I remember that moment. Yeah.
That's a little behind the scenes for our viewers.
But it's also, if you don't mind, I mean, when I started, for our viewers out there were 4 guides, and there were a couple hundred people a year on our tours at most, at most. And now I think we're up to 200 or something guides and 40,000 tour members. It's astonishing. And the guidebooks have grown in the same way, as has our expertise and knowledge.
Because we do what we know, and we know what we do.
And we love it.
We love it. Okay, we should keep talking about the Riviera.
Cheers.
Flowers seem to grow effortlessly and everywhere in this ideal climate. This has long been the Riviera's biggest flower market. Fresh flowers are of fine value in this otherwise pricey city. And with such an abundance of flowers, it's no wonder perfume is a local industry. The Molinard family has been making perfume from Côte d'Azur flowers for a century. Perfume is distilled like cognac and then aged like wine. It takes more than 400 pounds of lavender to produce just 1 quart of pure essence. For the French, finding just the right perfume is a personal quest. Because so many great 20th century artists chose to live and work here, the Riviera is studded with world-class modern art museums. Henri Matisse, Marc Chagall, Pablo Picasso, and many others raved about the region's light and vivid colors. They were charmed by the simple lifestyles of fishermen and villagers. The artist's colorful and semi-abstract works reflect the sleepy, more dreamy Riviera before all the development hit. They settled here in the sun and painted with wide-eyed wonder. The Matisse Museum offers a fascinating introduction to modern art inspired by the French Riviera. Henri Matisse opened a window onto paradise. Armed with the bright colors of the Impressionists, Matisse captured the radiant Riviera of the 1920s. Seascapes, fruit, flowers, and curvaceous women. Matisse was the master of leaving things out, letting us fill in the rest. Matisse painted the three-dimensional world as a two-dimensional pattern of vibrant colors. You don't look through Matisse art like a window, you look at it. You can trace his work as it evolves. It became simpler with time, from detailed realism to a colorful impressionistic style, to bold blocks of bright colors, to ever simpler forms, paring images down to two basic elements, line and color. His series called Jazz, like the music, celebrates artistic spontaneity and the otherworldly beauty that art can create. Matisse enjoyed a long and continually evolving career. In his 70s, fighting cancer and confined to a wheelchair, he traded easel painting for a new medium, paper cutouts. The cutouts are a single color with a strong outline. Scissors in hand, Matisse said, "I cut straight into the color."
Steve, you had a note about this Matisse museum.
Yeah, and more. Thanks for cutting in here. It's constantly, be careful when you go to this museum. The collection is ever changing because, so first of all, there's not a lot of his original work here. It's mostly in New York City. Americans bought the stuff and we have more of it than France does. It's still a great museum, but it's one of those museums where you might want to call ahead if you have your heart set on the Matisse Museum to make sure there's enough of his collection there that it's not all on or much on loan. That's a tough thing about the guidebook. You know, we do self-guided tours, right, through museums, and this is one of those ones that we have to be really general about because the art is moved and on loan so often.
Do you want to compare that to the Chagall Museum?
I know that's coming up, and why don't I do that in advance of the Chagall? The Chagall is the more important museum for most. That collection doesn't change. And Marc Chagall's work tends to be, I know Rick loves it, and thus we have quite a coverage of that museum, both of them really, but the Chagall Museum in our books. It's also a reminder, Lisa, that coming to the Riviera is, again, one more time, more than about sunshine and beaches and beautiful places and eating bouillabaisse. It is an art scene that is so affected by World War I. These artists, who born usually in the late 1800s, saw the impact of this incredible war, right? And flipped out. I mean, in a sense, and modern art in many ways is a reaction to the violence and the earth-changing, the world-changing impact of World War I. And so many of them, Picasso, Ferdinand Léger, Raoul Dufy, Chagall, Matisse, hung out, and there are museums to each of these artists. Auguste Renoir as well. You can visit his home and his garden and his museum there too.
The Chagall Museum is nearby. Starting in the 1950s, Marc Chagall painted a cycle of canvases designed for this building. Even if you're suspicious of modern art, this museum, with the largest collection of Chagall's work in captivity, is a delight. 17 biblical scenes make up the nave, or core, of what Chagall called the House of Brotherhood. Each painting is a lighter-than-air collage of images inspired by Chagall's Russian folk village youth, his Jewish heritage, biblical themes, and his feeling that he existed somewhere between heaven and earth. Chagall paints a world that's hidden to the eye, the magical, mystical world below the surface. He blends personal imagery, particularly from his childhood in Russia, the Hasidic Jewish perspective he absorbed as a child. That's the idea that God's everywhere, in nature, animals, and everyday things. Gravity-defying compositions, with lovers, animals, and angels twirling blissfully in midair. And childlike simplicity. Simple, heavy outlines, often spilling over with Crayola colors. Chagall saw the Bible as a synonym for nature. His brilliant blues and reds celebrate nature and its creator. His couples are enchanting. To Chagall, humans loving each other mirrored God's love of creation. He wrote, "In art as well as in life, anything is possible, provided there is love." The snug port of Villefranche, in spite of the luxury yachts glistening in its bay, offers travelers an easygoing slice of small-town Mediterranean life just minutes from the bustle of Nice and jet-setty Monaco. This town feels Italian, with soft orange buildings, steep narrow streets, and its pastel harbor. When the original ancient port was overtaken by pirates, its villagers fled into the hills. Later, in the 13th century, the king wanted to re-inhabit and therefore strengthen his coastline. To encourage the villagers, he granted the town tax-free status, and this place became Ville, town, Franche, without taxes. Villefranche. Villefranche was protected by an immense citadel. Today, because most of its 8,000 people call this their primary residence, Villefranche feels more like a real community than neighboring Riviera towns. Only a few families still fish for a living, but huge yachts call this bay home. This stretch of coast is studded with the floating toys of multimillionaires. Locals keep track of the world's biggest yachts and talk about them like they're part of the neighborhood. You never know whose stern line you may be catching. Here's the Lady Mora. Mora is an ex-wife of Saudi Arabia's King Fahd. Some of the Riviera's priciest real estate stretches from Villefranche to Monaco.
Some of the images aren't as good as I'd like them to be, but it is a beautiful. Villefranche is 10 minutes from Nice by buses that run about every 10 to 15 minutes. It is a great base to explore Nice from if you don't want a big city base. It's easy, it's comfortable. We have a range of hotels, all price ranges. That's what I like about it. There's like one budget hotel, one mid-range hotel, a really nice hotel, and a really nicer hotel. And it's also it's a calming place to go home after a busy day of sightseeing. It's sort of halfway between Monaco and Nice. And it's what else was I going to say about Villefranche? Well, it's a good, I know. If you ever wanted to learn French, and a lot of Americans do, they have probably one of the best programs for learning French, just conversational French, where you can rent a home or live with a local for a month or 2 months, whatever you choose to. Villefranche would be a lovely place to do that. And I hear such good compliments about their programs.
Okay, so I feel like, I've worked here a long time, I've known you a long time. I feel like back in the day, you really, really, really loved Villefranche and you weren't so hip on Nice. But now you're saying Nice has really evolved into something that you've come to love. So how does one decide between Nice and Villefranche?
You don't. You stay in both.
Oh.
And that's what I do. Seriously. Americans, in the old days, it was tough to convince Americans to get more than 2 weeks paid vacation and go somewhere. But more and more, like, our books are targeted on areas. And if you have 5 days, 3 days in Nice, 2 in Villefranche, hopefully 3 and 3, something like that. Because Villefranche, again, is such a good kickoff point to Monaco and Menton. And if you're going into Italy, destinations to the east, that direction. But they're a nice combination. It's a hard choice. You're either an urbanite, if you have to choose, or you want the quiet of Villefranche at the end of the day.
Okay.
I like that latter. I live on Bainbridge Island, remember? And I live in Burgundy when I'm in France 5 months out of the year.
Okay, well, coming up is one of my favorite sites on the whole Riviera.
Right, I know this.
Cap Ferrat, an extremely exclusive, largely residential community, fills a park-like peninsula. While you'll never get past any of these gates, you can spend a delightful day here just strolling. And this ain't your average jogging trail. Following its well-groomed path, you can stumble upon a hidden little beach, get a glimpse of David Niven's home, wander the ritzy port of Saint-Jean-Cap-Ferrat, and tour the ultimate Riviera mansion and gardens, the Rothschild Efrusy Villa. The extravagance of Venice, Versailles, and the Côte d'Azur all come together in this villa. Its lavish belle-époque interior offers a peek into the life of the rich and eccentric Baroness de Rothschild. Building this palace, the Baroness went through 10 architects. Her furnishings were fit for a queen. Imagine the correspondence composed at her personal letter-writing desk. Lady Rothschild's sense of style spilled into her backyard, a many-faceted garden. She drew inspiration from her travels abroad, a fragrant English rose garden, an exotic fantasy of cactus, a mysterious Gothic stone garden, and a tranquil Japanese garden. Overlooking everything, the Temple of Love. This region's breathtaking coastline is traversed by 3 coastal routes, the low, middle, and high Corniche. The low Corniche strings ports, beaches, and villages together. It was built in the 1860s, along with the train line, to bring people to the casino in nearby Monte Carlo.
Steve,
Yeah.
you had a tip you wanted to share with the viewers.
Yeah,
today.
you just saw my mouth probably open there. There's no reason to have a car in this area. I mean, unless you want to drive up into the hill towns, which we'll end with, I think, tonight. Otherwise, buses and trains that we just saw crisscross along the Riviera so easily. And traffic, if you're driving, is not fun. I love the connection between Nice and Monaco, where we're heading now, where the corniches are like roadways that scale up the side of the hill. There's the low, as Rick said, the middle and the high one. It's fun to take the bus one way and the train back the other between Nice and Monaco. I highly recommend that.
Because the train takes the low Corniche.
Right, and then you can do buses on the middle to high Corniche. Right?
Oh, either one, your choice.
We said we wouldn't get in the weeds in this show, and we don't have to. It's in the book how you can do this. In fact, we actually do a self-guided tour of exactly how to do this, and it's worth a whole day of your trip between Nice and Monaco,
Perfect, thank you.
or Villefranche and Monaco. Either way.
The middle Corniche comes with views of impressive villas, and the Grand Corniche caps the cliffs with staggering Mediterranean vistas. While hailed as Napoleon's crowning road construction achievement, it actually sits upon the Via Aurelia, a road built by the ancient Romans as they conquered the West. A towering Roman ruin celebrates that conquest. Caesar Augustus built the Trophy of the Alps to commemorate his defeat of the region's many hostile tribes. With this victory, the completion of the main artery connecting Italy and Spain was made possible. This opened the way for the continued expansion of the Roman Empire. The inscription tells the story. It was erected by the Senate and the people to honor the emperor. Carved below is an inventory of all the feisty barbarian tribes that put up such a fight. And on either side are the vanquished in chains at the feet of their conqueror, a reminder to any who would challenge the empire.
That monument is powerful. To imagine that 2,000 years ago, Roman civilization connected Italy and Spain this way with this route. The monument is towering. It's really well presented. And the reason to stop shortly is I love the town it's in La Tourbie, and the town, I recommend restaurants and enjoy. Don't just come for the monument. See a little bit of the village, because it's a beautiful hill town, much like Ez is that we're looking at and we'll go to now, with only a fraction of the visitors that go to Ez.
Standing high above the sea is touristy but magnificent Ez. The once formidable town gate, designed to keep rampaging pirates out, leads into the medieval village. This self-proclaimed village of art and gastronomy mixes perfume outlets, upscale boutiques, cobbled lanes, and scenic perches perfect for savoring a drink. The more adventurous can climb even further up to the scant ruins of the Ez Chateau. The paths leading there host a prickly festival of over 100 varieties of cacti. Looking beyond the flowers, you'll enjoy a commanding Riviera view.
That is as awesome as it looks to be up there in Ez, and to be at the Cactus Gardens. The Jardin des Cactus is remarkable. And it's a fun place to arrive late in the day because it's very busy, and then stay for dinner. You can cab back to Villefranche for a reasonable price and escape most of the tourists. There you go.
Just below sits Monaco, with barely 1 square mile of
Territory, it's one of the world's smallest countries. Of its 30,000 residents, less than 10,000 are true Monegasque, as locals are called. Many of the rest call Monaco home because there's no income tax. Despite overdevelopment, high prices, and mobs of tourists, a visit here is a Riviera must. And Monaco is a work in progress. The district of Fontvieille was reclaimed from the sea. It bristles with luxury high-rise condos. The new breakwater, constructed elsewhere and towed in, enables cruise ships to dock. And cars still race, as they have since 1929, around the Principality in one of the world's most famous auto races, the Grand Prix of Monaco. The minuscule Principality has always been tiny, but it used to be less tiny. In the 1860s, it lost most of its territory to France, but the prince built a casino and managed to connect his domain to the rest of the Riviera with a new road and a train line. Humble Monaco was suddenly on the Grand Tour map, the place for the vacationing aristocracy to play. Today, the people of Monaco have about the world's highest per capita income, with plush apartments to match. Its famous casino allows the wealthy to enjoy losing money in extreme comfort. If Monaco is a business,
Okay, this is my fault. I'm breaking in because I want to know it's been a few years since I was in Monaco. Can you still get your passport stamped at the tourist information office for a fee?
No, they don't do it anymore.
That's lame.
But you can still get stamps. The Monegasque stamps you can still get. I'm sorry to tell you. And Monaco, it's there's new sites there since this TV show was done, and one of them that we cover well is and this isn't my thing so much, but I was impressed with it. So was Rick. We went together. Is the car museum, the antique car museum, the Prince Rainier's. He was a collector of cars, and so is his son Albert, who runs the show today in Monaco. It's astonishing, and the casino. I think we just went through it. I don't think we're going to cover it more. They have figured out how to allow tourists to visit it, because the casino, by the way, is also an opera house. If anybody knows of Sarah Bernhardt, she was the original performer there. So there's more than just changing money and gambling. And in the mornings, you can visit the atrium and the opera house if you want to, and the performing center. And then at 2 o'clock on, for $18, €18, you can enter the gambling part. But you have to dress well. You don't need a tie, but no shorts, nothing. Wear the best clothes you brought, and bring your passport, by the way. This confounds Americans. This is important. Bring your passport, because they'll probably let you in. They'll realize, but they don't allow people from Monaco in the casino.
Really?
Because they don't want them to lose their money this way. They want the foreigners to lose their money this way. And I have to be honest, I don't know how closely that's monitored. It used to be in the old days. I had to bring my passport when I went to Monaco, and I think you're safer to do that if you really want to go in the evening. And it's a pretty cool scene, you guys. It's really James Bond-like, because the gambling rooms open at 2. And it's unique, I think, in the world. I mean, the casino at Monte Carlo, the first great casino that we know of in the West. And to be there in the evening and watch the guys and the women dressed nicer than you are, gambling in such a luxurious situation. It's kind of like going to Versailles with roulette. I just made that up. That's good. I'm going to add that to the book next year.
Well, I'm really glad that you shared your point of view with us on that, because I have only been during the day. Right. And I walked around and I wondered how intimidated I would be to go in the evening. But
it's fine. And the buses and trains connect that to Villefranche and Nice and Antibes, for that matter, further west, very easily.
Okay, thank you. Merci.
If Monaco is a business, the prince is its CEO. While the casino generates only a small part of the state's revenue, its many banks, which provide an attractive way to protect your money from the tax man, earn much more. There is no income tax here, but the prince collects plenty of money in value-added taxes, real estate taxes, and corporate taxes. Nearly all of Monaco's sights are packed in a Cinderella neighborhood atop its fortified hill. Its impressive aquarium, which proudly crowns the cliff like a palace, was directed by Jacques Cousteau for 17 years. A medieval castle sat where Monaco's palace sits today. The palace guards protect the ruling Grimaldi family 24/7, and they change with the pageantry of an important nation. Every day at about noon, tourists pack the square to witness the spectacle. The Palace Square features a statue of Francois Grimaldi, a renegade Italian who captured Monaco disguised as a monk in 1297. This first ruler of Monaco established the dynasty that still rules the principality. Today, over 700 years later, the current prince is his direct descendant. Monaco's cathedral holds the tombs of centuries of Grimaldis. The most visited one, that of Princess Grace. The glamorous romance and marriage of the American actress Grace Kelly to Prince Rainier added to Monaco's fairy tale mystique. Grace Kelly came to Monaco in the 1950s to star in a movie. She fell in love with the prince, married him, and adopted the country. Tragically, Monaco's much-loved Princess Grace died in a car accident on the Corniche in 1982. Exploring the Riviera by train is faster, less expensive, and safer than by car. While traffic is exasperating and parking is costly, the region seems designed to be explored by train, with frequent trains linking nearly everything we're seeing in a scenic snap. We're connecting the east and west extremes of our visit, Monaco and Cannes, in just over an hour.
So, Steve, I wanted to break in here because you asked me to, because you had some new stuff from the book that you wanted to mention.
About Monaco? Yeah, oh, right. Thank you. I almost forgot. Rick and I both love the town after Monaco. It's called Menton, M-E-N-T-O-N. It is a delight. And it's funny, you go, as you bus or train through from the Nice, going east toward Monaco. You pass through Monaco, its own principality, its own country, which, by the way, is administered by the French, right? And Monaco, Prince Rainier, who we know, his son Albert, is in charge now. He's the prince, and his sisters Caroline and Stephanie still live nearby, but they don't get to live in the palace as he does. The palace itself is a good visit. It really is. And by the way, when we saw that changing of the guard, you know, there are more people in the Philharmonic in Monaco than there are in the military.
That's
I
charming.
love that. Does that say everything to you? I love that it's an adorable little visit. Okay, so but Menton is 12 minutes by train past Monaco, and there are almost no Americans there, and it feels compared to a lot of these other hill towns on the water that you are. Menton is a beach town too, but it runs right up the cliffs. It has a great market. If you like Jean Cocteau and you know anything about him, you know, filmmaker, artist, renegade a little bit. There's a museum. I mean, he lived in Menton, and so there's a good history to him there too. But that's when you go to Monaco, if you have a little bit extra time and you want to explore the Riviera without crowds at all, Menton is a favorite of mine and Rick's. That's what I wanted to say here.
Thank you.
And it's covered in the new edition of the books now in good detail.
Which will be out when?
It's out. It's
Awesome.
done. It's out. Yeah, it's already out.
Fantastic. So we're going to go in the video to Cannes. And I, even though I am really severely a big Hollywood movie film buff, I've actually have heard of Jean-Paul Cocteau, but I have no desire to go to Cannes. And when we were talking about it off camera, I found that I was not the only one. So we're going to show it, but you don't recommend it, do you?
No. The only place I recommend less than Cannes is Saint-Tropez, and we're not going to cover that. These places, I mean, Cannes it's fine. They have nice sandy beaches. You'll see some of the sandy beaches. And this film festival hall if you're there during the film festival, it's pretty remarkable to see all the glitterati. But the hall itself is a zero. It looks like a bomb shelter to me almost. There's not, you remember, you've been there, you've seen it. And it's a very high-end city with, Rick says in the book, I love this line he had. He says you could buy an ice cream cone as you leave the train station, and you'll see all the sights in Cannes by the time you finished your ice cream cone.
That's smart.
That says it all.
Okay, well, we'll see it now anyway.
It's easy to get to.
Cannes is famous for its International Film Festival. Its sister city, not surprisingly, is Beverly Hills. This city has hosted the famous Cannes Film Festival annually since 1946. Each May, as the world looks on, the city is packed with film producers, celebrities, and paparazzi. With exclusive hotels lining mostly private stretches of sandy beach, Cannes is for strolling, dreaming of meeting a movie star, and lounging on the seafront. Don't look for any actual sites to tour. If you missed the film festival, there's little to do other than shop and enjoy the beach. While there is a public beach, the majority of its beaches come with a fee. The real Cannes experience seems to be paying to sunbathe without commoners mucking up your space. While those enamored with lifestyles of the rich and famous flock to resorts like Cannes or the insufferably chic Saint-Tropez, I prefer nestled between Nice and Cannes. Antibes has a down-to-earth ambience rare for this area. Its old town charms are wrapped in a rampart and watched over by twin medieval towers. Antibes was discovered after World War I. It enjoyed a particularly roaring 20s with the help of party animals like Rudolph Valentino and the rowdy, yet ever silent, Charlie Chaplin. They say fun seekers even invented water skiing right here in the 1920s. Before 1860, when Nice was under Italian rule, Antibes was France's last fort before the Italian border. The French king made sure the ramparts were strong and well defended. Today, the fort protects a priceless collection of Picassos. In 1946, 65-year-old Pablo Picasso was reborn. World War II was over, and Picasso could finally escape the gray skies and gray uniforms of Nazi-occupied Paris. Enjoying worldwide fame and the love of 23-year-old Françoise Gillot, Picasso moved to Antibes. He lived and worked in this castle and on this terrace. He painted like a madman, swam in the Mediterranean in the morning, partied with his friends in the evening, and painted again late into the night. Ever restless, Picasso had finally found his Garden of Eden, his joy of life, and he painted it. In his Joie de Vivre, we see his flower child, Françoise. She kicks up her heels and dances across a Riviera beach. Flute-playing satyrs, centaurs, and fauns announce the newfound freedom of a newly liberated France and a newly liberated Picasso. After decades in the city, Picasso rediscovered the joys of village life. Shopping in the Antibes market, he'd return home and turn groceries into masterpieces. With his distinct Cubist style, he captured sunbathers and munching locals. He was fascinated with the simple life of fishermen. Picasso painted a pagan paradise where civilized people could let their hair down and indulge in simple animal pleasures. For an edible joie de vivre, we're finishing back in Villefranche with bouillabaisse, the Riviera's most famous dish. This spicy fish stew is based on recipes handed down from sailors in nearby Marseille. A true bouillabaisse must contain at least 4 types of fresh fish, though most have more. The fish is cooked in a tomato-based stock, flavored with saffron and white wine. The bouillabaisse is topped with a dollop of garlicky sauce and crunchy croutons. Travel, like a fine bouillabaisse, is the happy result of good things coming together. For the French Riviera, take a variety of beach towns, spice with modern art. Toss in a pinch of history, sprinkle in some glamour, and let simmer under the Mediterranean sun.
I love it. I love it. That's good. You want to say something, Lisa, and then I'll add.
One of his more poetic endings to a show.
It was pretty good.
It's
Yeah.
like this recipe for travel. I love it. I'm gonna ask you before we even get to the word from our sponsor, because it goes so beautifully with what we're talking about. Mary Rose would like to know, what are your favorite French dishes from this region?
So, wow, questions already. Salad niçoise, properly done. I mean, and the recipe's in the book, but properly done salad niçoise is my favorite. I love anchovies too, and I love pizza laudière. I mentioned that before, and there is a uh, bouillabaisse is one pricey dish to order, and I think it's not unusual for people to be maybe a little bit disappointed because they paid so much for it. There's two poor man's versions of bouillabaisse that if you're taking notes are worth, and it's in the book if you have the book. Soupe de poisson is the simplest version of it because you get the same sauce and rouille that goes to make with the croutons, the base of a bouillabaisse. But I love bourride, Bourride, which is a seafood stew that's made throughout South and East France, and particularly in the Riviera, bourride. Um, that's a great order. Yeah, and there's so much fish from the Mediterranean as well.
What,
And
what's the
and
difference between a bourride and a bouillabaisse?
the bourride is a completely different base for the sauce. It's
Okay,
a creamier white sauce. Fewer different types of fish are required to go in it. It's a fraction of the price. It's like a fifth of the price of a bouillabaisse. You'll find me and also, by the way, on the cuisine thing, Italian. Half your meal should be Italian. I mean, you should be that's eating local in the Riviera.
perfect. Okay, so the word from our sponsor this evening is well, we could go with the France guidebook. I have the France guidebook here. I didn't have the Provence guidebook handy because I actually took it home. So we have the France guidebook, which has that's exactly what I wanted, Steve. Thank you. Thank you. That is the Provence and the French Riviera book. And it is, I love all our books. Obviously, I use them every day in my job, but the Provence book and the Riviera book, the Provence and Riviera book is just one of my favorites. It's so well written.
I think thank you. That's nice of you to say, Lisa. That destination is a brilliant 2-week destination. Provence and the Côte d'Azur or the Riviera. And we're gonna talk hill towns a little bit, aren't we, here in a minute?
Yeah,
Okay.
yes,
There is
we can get to that. I was gonna lead into that because I had one question about that.
okay.
Let's see, do you think that Menton would make a good home base in the Riviera?
No,
Okay.
no. No, I like it. So I'll qualify that. If you want to be away from things and people, Menton's very cool. And I list 4 or 5 hotels, I think. And they're fine. I don't remember. Yeah, I liked them a lot. And you can be on the water for a fraction of the price of Villefranche or Nice, or not a fraction, that's overstated, but for less. But because it's at the extreme eastern end, it's and then it's a little bit too far east, I guess. But then again, Ventimiglia, I mean, Italy's 3 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
If you go heading that direction, Montaut is kind of a cool place. But it's 40 minutes to Nice, right? And I like Villefranche, it's 10 minutes from Nice. I also meant to say, Lisa, I meant to stop. When you were in Antibes with the Picasso Museum, I thought Rick's coverage in the video was perfect, by the way. And I write that chapter, and I know he uses my script for the words, but the museum is, if a lot of Americans don't get Picasso and abstraction like that. That museum, and I think the way we present it in the book, makes his art much more understandable than the Picasso Museum in Paris or even the one in Barcelona. And it's a lot quieter. Oh my God. And you're on the water looking at you're looking at beautiful paintings of this powerful artist who affected so much of the future of art, as did Matisse. And you're looking out at the beautiful Riviera and the water at the same time. And I like Antibes. I meant to say this too, listeners out there. If you choose to drive to the Riviera and you have a car, I don't blame you, that's fine. Stay in Antibes. the hotels that I like there have easy parking, and then you can drop your car there and take the trains from there to see Nice and Villefranche and Monaco. But it's an easier city for car drivers. And I like Antibes a lot, as much as I do Villefranche, and they're on either side of Nice, east or west, as a base for touring the Riviera. And then, of course, getting into the hill towns, because Antibes is the best kickoff point for that, which you'll hear about shortly.
Hill towns, let us get to the next part of our show. I had to stop the screen share, so let's go back and
You're doing a good job there, Lisa.
God bless you. Thank you, sir. Okay, here we go. You tell me when you want me to advance it, and I will.
Okay, yeah, this will be a little bit funky, but we'll be able to do it. I grew up in Southern California on the beaches, and so I'm now more inclined to hill towns and rugged countryside, et cetera. So I will accent this maybe more than Rick would. But so as you look at this map, Nice, okay, glasses, Steve. Nice is in a little bit the upper right-hand corner. You can see it below Monaco. And the roads below Nice that lead up to the top of the map are just filled with, it's so close to Nice. You know, you can ski from Nice in a day. The countryside, immediately the Alps drop down. What creates the climate in Nice, and I can see I have time to talk about this, is the Alps drop right down into the Riviera. Go to the next slide, will you? Because that shows you, this is my picture that I took from my iPhone of Antibes on my last trip. Look at the Alps. This is not something I got or bought or anything. My camera took this picture. I can't believe I got this well. But the Alps are right there front and center. And if you get a clear day in the winter. So here, I think I'm early April, and there was a lot of snow that year, right? The snow is an issue for skiing from Nice, and I don't think our readers are worried about that. But this displays both the cool aspect of Antibes. It's a neat town. And that's the Picasso Museum you see with the tower right there. And look at how close the mountains are. Okay, Lisa, then we can go to the next image. Getting away, now you can see in the distance, it gets immediately quiet. There's no more traffic outside of the odd parking issue if you're in St. Paul. We'll talk about that. But out in the distance is the Riviera. You can see the water in the cloudy distance a little bit. And getting high above, I don't know, this image is of Gourdon, maybe 20 minutes away from the water. Next, please. It is, okay, so the most popular destination, which is about a 35-minute bus ride from downtown Nice, 40-minute, is St. Paul de Vence. It is the most perfectly rounded, preserved hill town, and it's too close to Nice for its own good in many ways. So go early, get here early, because it gets overrun, because it's so close to the beaches, et cetera. But it is a gorgeous little hill town where Marc Chagall is buried, by the way, and you can visit his grave. Next, madame. Oh, yes, and nearby, really close, art lovers. We mentioned the Picasso Museum. We've mentioned Matisse. We've mentioned Chagall. I also, let's see, mentioned Renoir. The foundation, and the French would say Fondation Mecte, is really in St. Paul, just above the hill town there. You could walk there. Is a brilliant assembly of all those artists, plus many others who found the Riviera to their liking and learned from, so much of art is created by artists sharing ideas and sort of that, I don't know, Petri dish. I think I always think of that as I think of Paris, right? During, in Montmartre, during the Impressionist movement. Here later, right? In the 20s and 30s and 40s and post-World War I, post-World War II, the Foundation Mecte is a must for any lover of contemporary art. And it's just outside of St. Paul. Next. But where I love to stay, I base here. I booked 2 nights here from my research trip. And if you want to see me there, I'll be there in late April. Vence, V-E-N-C-E, is, I don't know, 10 minutes from St. Paul. And it's bigger. It's more interesting to me as a base for hotels, restaurants, et cetera. The whole center of the town. And I don't know, maybe there's 20,000 people. That's probably overstated, 10,000 people in Vence. It's not a little village, but it's big enough to have and pedestrian streets like this. Next, please. And cafes everywhere. Look at the scene, and it's quiet. You are 45 minutes from downtown Nice, and suddenly you're in the hills. The air is fresh and clean, and and keep going, please. And it's famous for one particular reason. Henri Matisse had developed cancer, and a nun who took care of him was a member of this chapel here in Vence, where he created a world famous. The Chapel of the Rosary in Vence is sought after by lots of Matisse lovers, and it's interesting because it's so simple. With just charcoal on white tiles, you can see to the right side, but the play of his stained glass that he designed that will remind you of images we saw earlier from the museum in Nice of Matisse makes a beautiful visit. And it's rather simple, but it's perfectly Matisse. That's the big sight in Vence. Plus, it's just a nice place to end your day in that little town. Next, please. And all around it are hill towns. You can keep going. A Gourdon here. This is just minutes from downtown Nice, but you're a world apart. That's Gourdon. It's on a little one thing I love about our books, Lisa, is that we do, well, particularly in France, I do self-guided driving tours. This is where a car is really handy. And this is where staying in Antibes, if you had a car, it's a big benefit to you because buses are tricky to use to get to destinations like Gourdon here, which is just this 2,500 feet above sea level, suddenly hill town. I mean, you've gone from sea level to this, and it's, you can see how crowded it is. Next, please. And this is Coursailles, no, it's Grey-Olière, pardon me, keep going. This is hill towns, I mean, built into the side. This side of the cliffs, I'm doing fine time-wise. Grasse is this image. Grasse has been, and I want our listeners to hear this, for 500 years, the capital of perfume production. Not just last year or the year before, a few years, 500 years, the hill town of Grasse, because it has a microclimate that grows flowers exactly as needed for perfumes. And it's it's a real city. It's not a polished hill town. There's a certain gritty aspect that Steve likes about places. It's not so polished and perfect. You know when you've gone to one of these hill towns that it's just every cobblestone is almost too perfect. Well, that's not Grasse, but it's a perfectly safe, good place to visit. Next, please. And it's got this brilliant museum of perfume that's only been open maybe since just before COVID, I think. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a big perfume guy, but I found the history of perfume, which starts with in this museum in the area of the Egyptian pharaohs, to bring it to today is a fascinating look if you're into perfume at all. And then you can visit the Molinard or the other perfume factories if you want to get a tour for free, and they'll try to sell you all the perfume they can. All right, next, madame. Oh, but this is the stuff that turns me on. I am another 45 minutes from Grasse. If you're in your car, there's no way to do this other than a car. Heading toward Provence or from Provence and connecting to the Riviera, this is by far the most scenic way you could possibly do it. The gorge, this is France's Grand Canyon, the Gorge of Verdun, Verdon, where the cliffs plunge 3,000 feet down to the turquoise river below that you can see. Next image. I think I've got another one of it. Yeah, it is dramatic. It is a shock that you can day trip this from Nice. You can loop from downtown Nice. You'll get here in about an hour and 20 minutes. Spend your day, there's about an hour-long drive along the Gorge de Verdun and then back to Nice at the end of the day if you want to. I prefer spending the night along here in one of the hill towns I recommend, but there is a hotel built, I don't have an image of it, right into the cliffs with a view much like this one. And I didn't think to bring a picture of it for you tonight, Lisa, in their Grand Canyon, as you continue west toward Provence, because you're north of Nice, heading west toward Provence. Next, please. And and you can rent paddle boats. There's a little lake there, and this is the river, the Verdun River, and notice the glacial silt that creates that color. It looks like that year round. And you can paddle boat up or kayak up to a certain distance into the canyon. You can't go all that far because it becomes unnavigable. But you can see by the images. what a contrast to sitting on the beach, sipping your rosé wine, to be able to do this as a day trip from downtown Nice, right?
Mhm.
You better agree with me. You know, I love the nature thing. Oh man. And by the way, France, that this has for a long time been the outdoors place to go for Europeans. If you want to mountain climb, and if you want to go kayaking, and if you want to go hiking, obviously the Alps, the Pyrenees, the Massif Central that creates this southern central part of France, as a destination, it's, I mean, huge part of its popularity is our nature sites like this. We needed to do a show on the Alps sometime, by the way. That reminds me.
Okay.
Okay,
Ready?
glasses.
I wanna do this. Now I'm like, I wanna get in a kayak and I wanna kayak in this gorge.
It is, it really is simple, and it really is as beautiful as it looks. I mean, yeah, it is. And I get to do this. You know, writing the guidebooks, I get to go there all the time. And I think, God, I hope our readers are doing this stuff because I love it so much. And it's so accessible. Yeah, you need a car. That's true. And by the way, there's a way.
France is the driving in France, in my opinion, is the easiest country in Europe to drive in for
And
Americans.
I know you've traveled a lot in France. Between France and Italy, you're kind of an expert. I mean, you've been all over. I know, Lisa. Yeah, yeah.
That's because
You
I
even,
made you book my hotels.
and then you visited me in my house too one time. I remember that a long time ago. Yeah. Anyway, okay, the Gorge of Verdun is spectacular, and I don't need to say more. And again, one more time, it's a great way to connect Provence and the Luberon. You're going to end up in the Luberon. If you've ever heard of Peter Mayle in A Year in Provence, that's his region. What a way to, and again, I'm going to back up, and I'm covering lots of things because I see I have a few minutes here that I can still say. Nice is what I do every year. I fly in or out of Nice and in or out of Paris. It just depends on the connection. Those two airports are so easy for reasonable flights from the United States. Yeah, you have to transfer to get to Nice if you're coming from the United States normally. I'm not sure from the East Coast, but certainly from the West Coast, there's no direct flight to Nice. But it's a pretty easy transfer in many capitals in Europe. But there are direct nonstop flights from many American cities to Paris, of course, and connect the two. What a great trip. Connect Nice and Paris.
Next.
Next. Yeah, I think this is probably my last image. This is Moustier Sainte Marie, and it looks just like this in person. It's how they wedged these little terracotta roofed town houses into the edge of the cliffs like that is remarkable. And I also love Aiguine, it's in the book. I don't need to spell it for people, I don't think. But wow, spending the night here, it's very easy to pass through here in the day because you can pass through in a day. But if you take the time, it's pretty magical to spend a night here. We're either in Moustier or along the Gorge of Verdun. Oh, and Moustier is famous for its china.
Oh,
Some
really?
people might be aware of it. Isn't that funny? Believe me, that's the whole town right there. That's everything. There's nothing anywhere near it but that. And it's known for its china. And I'm not really good at that kind of stuff, but I'm aware that it's popular with that. And I list a few hotels, bed and breakfasts, and good restaurants here too, by the way. There you are. I think that's it. Do I have any more? I think that's the last of my images. Is that right? That I added on to the video?
It is.
All right.
You and me and all the questions. But we answered some of them along the way. Okay. Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
All right. I'll give you an easy one. And this is for our YouTube viewers, what is the cost of a chair and umbrella on a private beach these days?
Oh, and in Nice, this would be more expensive in Cannes because usually those beaches in Cannes that are private are associated with hotels like the Ritz-Carlton. That should tell you something right away. By the way, I'm going to go random on you a little bit here. When we were in between Cannes and Antibes, another historical part of this that I failed to mention earlier that I want to remind people of is the history of Charlie Chaplin, Scott Fitzgerald, and Ernest Hemingway. They loved this area. And anyway, So if you're sort of an early American author lover, my father taught Hemingway and Fitzgerald, and my dad was a professor, so it's sort of imbued in me. Anyway, where was I, Lisa? I lost track of
We were
what.
talking about what's it going to cost for me to plunk.
Yes, a beach chair, etc. In Nice, where most people are going to want to do this. First of all, Antibes and Villefranche have largely sandy beaches where you just throw your towel out. You don't need one. Nice, you definitely need something because those rocks aren't very comfortable. So a chair, a chaise lounge is going to be like $15. Add a side table and an umbrella, another $5. I mean, it turns out, and a towel, etc., maybe $30 for the day, right?
That's very reasonable.
It is. But again, I know I mentioned earlier, you can have breakfast or lunch or dinner and savor it and spend hours over a meal and have the same, unless you need to sit in the sun and get tan. I think it's a better experience. That's my opinion.
Okay, well, you can do it either way. then.
So it's affordable. Yeah, I mean, Americans may not be used to spending money to sit on a beach, but when it's really rocky like that, and it's kind of fun to have a waiter come to your chaise lounge and ask you, do you want something with your pink martini? I just made that up. I don't know they serve pink martinis. I just like that group.
Okay, let's see. So we answered all of those. In the book, do you recommend any cooking schools or classes in the Riviera?
Do I ever? Do I ever? And by the way, I'm learning, that's hugely popular now. So, and in this chapter, Nice, there is a woman named Nadine who she's in the book, killer good, and Rick was blown away with it. I think we were there just the year 2023 was the last time Rick came. We spent 10 days on the Riviera, and he took her food tour. But I also list a couple of others. Rosa Jackson is also great. She's Canadian and does a great job too. And people find these things, I know, online as well. But those are two that we've tested, and they're reliable and good. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. We're giving personal recommendations for things that we've done.
Right. And we trust these people. We know Rosa is leading your tour. Nadine is leading your tour, not somebody that this small group of people throws together and doesn't teach very well. Sorry.
So, no, it's fine. Gary would like to know, why do you not cover Marseille much? What's your opinion on it?
I love Marseille, but it's not the Riviera. I agree with Gary. Go to Marseille, please. It's officially Provence. And so we've cut this show off. I mean, this show is directed by the video that you showed. But between you and me, I could consider Marseille the eastern edge of the Riviera. We officially, it's Saint-Tropez, and east of Saint-Tropez by another hour and a half is Marseille. So it's a ways. But I highly recommend going there. I really like Marseille. It's a brilliant city, and it's like Nice. It's up and coming and deserves your attention. You might want to sleep. My favorite, I know you know the place. My favorite beach town is Cassis, Cassis, which is 20 minutes from Marseille. So I'd sleep in Cassis and day trip into Marseille by all means. What a killer. And it's just Provence. It's on the Mediterranean too. But that's all, Gary. That's the only reason.
Okay. Have you ever visited Quebec?
Yes, a long time ago.
Did you enjoy it there?
I love Quebec.
Okay.
I really love Montreal, and Quebec. It's a funny accent they have there. No, friendly people.
My French friend said it's like people speaking Shakespearean English.
Oh, did somebody ask that question, or is that from you?
Yeah, no, Susan asked.
Oh, yeah. I mean, particularly from the East Coast, it's easier to get to than from where we live in the far West. Montreal is a brilliant city. I remember that bit. I was there more recently. I think it's overlooked probably by Americans too.
Okay. Joanna would like to know, and we'll just have two more questions or so. Joanna would like to know, does the Riviera make any efforts to limit cruise ships or tourism more generally?
Not that I know of yet, but what a good question. And okay, so now I'm going to go off on you a little bit. First of all, that's a really good question. So I go there all the time, right? I don't feel the same burden. There's another word I want. Prevalence of those cruise ships that I do when I'm in Venice or Dubrovnik or other parts of Europe. So It's not a huge issue to me because they dock in Marseille, Toulon, Nice, and mostly Villefranche because that's the deepest harbor there is. And so it's not such a huge issue as it is in other parts. What is a huge issue, where I'm going to random you on, is that drove Rick nuts last time we were there, are Airbnbs. Because certain cities in Europe, and the old city of Nice that is very Italianesque, is being turned into what he would call an Airbnb ghetto. It drove him, yeah, and I understand it. The whole dynamics and the pricing structure of why people can turn their apartments over to tourists and get a lot more money than renting to locals who are now priced out of the market, is making certain cores of cities not, in a sense, as real as they used to be. So it's an issue that's being dealt with, though. That one is being dealt with by the French much more forcibly than I know that cruise ships are.
Great.
Tough
Okay.
thing, though. Tough dilemmas to deal with. Yeah, because we love our Airbnbs. I get it. Yeah.
Elaine would like to know, have you ever visited Cagnes-sur-Mer? Cannes?
Yes.
How do you
Cagnes,
pronounce
Mer.
it?
Cagnes. It's pronounced Cagnes. Yeah.
Cagnes-sur-Mer.
Yes.
Where Renoir spent the last 12 years of his life. If so, do you recommend it?
So I'm glad she asked the question. It's a beautiful hill town, another beautiful hill town, right? I mean, the town spreads down from the hills to the waterfront, to the sea, the Mediterranean. Between that is Renoir's home, where he spent the last 12 years of his life, in his garden. He was a big gardener. And if you're a Renoir fan, it's worth that pilgrimage. You're not going to see a lot of his art. There's small sketches, etc. You'll see a lot better of his art in Paris at the Orsay Museum, for example, right? And other museums in the world. So don't go expecting to see great paintings of his. But if the pilgrimage matters to you, much like going to Giverny to see Claude Monet's, where he spent the last years of his life, right? Creating his gardens, and Renoir did the same thing just in the south, then it's a pretty cool place to go. I wouldn't base there. It's the seafront there is ruined, I think. I mean, it's just too many high rises, and you can't even see the old hill town, which is beautiful, from, you know what I mean? Because it's just too close to the water. Does that help? I hope so. I hope that helps. I like it. I like it, but it's not. There's other places I go first as a base. And there's no reason to go into the old city of Cagnes-sur-Mer unless you're staying there to wander the old hill town, because there's other hill towns that are nicer for us tourists.
Steve,
Yes, I'm opinionated. Yes,
that's why we ask you here. That's why you're a guidebook author. I want opinions. I want hard information. I want to get that kind of information out to our viewers. So I want to thank you very, very much for being with us tonight.
You bet.
I hear tell that you want to do a show now on the French Alps. Is that what I'm hearing?
I would love that. Yeah, we could do Alpine, we could do Alps and Pyrenees. It'd be kind of fun. Yeah, because the Pyrenees are so unvisited and the Alps are well known, but I think we could direct people to places they might not otherwise know of. But places like the Tour of Mont Blanc, the route around Mont Blanc, and Rick did an episode on that. We could use that. It's a little popular for its own good, in my opinion, but it's pretty cool too. It's to be able to walk around Mont Blanc in 10 days is quite an accomplishment.
Well, if any of this has spurred your creative juices to talk about itinerary planning, I invite you, our viewers, to come back next week when Gabe and Ben and I will be discussing how to do the best job itinerary planning. So that's next week's show. We'd love to see you there. Steve, thank you very much. We'll have you back soon.
Au revoir, Lise. I can't wait. À bientôt, j'espère. Hein? And à bientôt de tout le monde.
Ooh la la.